To begin today's program, I am pleased to introduce Museum President Susan Marinoff-Zausner.
On each occasion, and as just happened today, I've had the opportunity to meet remarkable men and women who have served our country. And to date, in this theater, we have dedicated 150 of what are our 235 seats in this theater. And we've welcomed more than 800 service members and their families at this ceremony. We have people that have been here before, familiar faces. We have new faces, and it is just incredible to think and to know that you have traveled from all over the country to be here. Today, we pay tribute to 11 incredible individuals and one very special group of sailors.
Back in February, Bob Astalos, the son of Roseanne and Charles, contacted the museum asking for information about a young sailor who served aboard Intrepid. His name was Askew Ray Steffens. Unbeknownst to Bob and his family, at the start of World War II, his mother had met Askew at a dance, fallen in love, and the two got engaged. But before they could marry, Askew and 68 of his fellow sailors were killed in a kamikaze attack aboard Intrepid on November 25th, 1944.
We found she had written that one night she was at a dance in Patterson and she said she met this sailor and she said he glided across the dance floor and he had deep blue eyes and she basically fell in love. And they had coffee a couple times and he had to ship out onto the Intrepid shortly afterwards, and she had said that they wrote each other and they got engaged. And then one day she got a phone call from Askew's mom, and they got a telegram that he had been killed in a kamikaze attack here. She was devastated by it. But like everybody in that time, it was a whole different period. And so she moved on and she met my dad after the war. They also met at a dance too, so I don't know about my mom and dancing and all that, but that's where she went, pick up man, I guess. She met my dad at a dance, and they got engaged, and they never told the story, and they never talked about it. And then so afterwards, we found the journal, and I think that this is probably the most amazing part and the real tribute to my parents. I was working with Matt to find out who this sailor was, and Matt shared some information with me who it might be, and we figured it out that the sailor's name was Askew Steffens, and there's a picture of him. And Matt sent me some more information, and it turns out that Askew had a sister named Margaret Steffens. Well, when we were growing up, we used to visit Margaret Steffens all the time. And with that, on behalf of my family, I just want to thank the Intrepid for being able to keep this memory alive, because it's an amazing story about a generation that's passing and a time that we can't even comprehend.
My father enlisted in the Navy in January of 1943 at the age of 17, and he was part of the original plank owner from the Intrepid. This is very special to my sister and I, because during that period of time, the person that we refer to as our grandfather, Uncle Parker Nash, he also joined up, but he was in his 40s. He had missed World War II World War I because of some family obligations, and so he joined up. He was about 44 when he joined. Anyway, this is a very, very special time for us. My father then moved on, as he said, to San Francisco. Parker moved there after the war, and they became very fast friends. He ended up with a house down the street, and my sister and I spent all our time between both houses. So he was a part of our family for that period of time. So this is a very, very special time for us. And for that reason, we felt it was very appropriate to come back to the Intrepid, to honor both of them for their service to the country.
Bill, or Old Blue Eyes, as he was often referred to, was a quiet man, a few words, but you could more or less sense his private thoughts without question. Although he showed his love in a different kind of way, you definitely know he loved from the heart. Bill was a caring man, a wonderful listener, and when given advice from him, you knew it was sincere. Growing up in the Bronx and moving to New Jersey at the age of 10, His sister's memories of their childhood are few but fond. Bill joined the Navy after graduation and settled in Florida. He devoted himself to hard work and always put his family first. As they became adults, it was then they shared their lives and family and became close as time passed on. His sisters Ann, Betsy, and Tisha will forever cherish the time they had together with Bill and hold his memory close to their hearts. They believe he is at peace now and is in a better place. They are honored to dedicate this seat and commemorate his devotion to family, God, and country. We love you and will always will, our strong, handsome, blue-eyed Bill.
On November 1st, 1944, the Abner Reed was patrolling the Leyte Gulf, protecting a beachhead when the Japanese launched more kamikaze attacks. Just before 2 p.m., a kamikaze plane attacked and hit the Abner Reed midship, and the ship took just 36 minutes to plunge to the bottom of the Leyte Gulf. And he told me the story. He said, I was at the stern of the ship, and it was around noontime with the sun high in the sky, and a kamikaze plane attacked the ship, approaching with the sun behind us, so it was a little too late before it could be stopped fully. The plane crashed midship, causing huge explosions and fireball. The heat from the fire was unbelievable. The ship immediately began to sink, and the order to abandon ship was given. I began running across the deck to jump off the ship when I ran into a sailor who was without a life jacket, which is for all the sailors here to know that's against regulation. He made that clear. And he was panicking. I stopped to help him in getting off the ship, but the sailor fought me, telling me I can't swim. So I took off my life jacket, and I gave it to this guy, and we both ran and jumped off the ship. Having Peter's name here is, in a way, putting him with his family, his extended family, of those like him that each in their own way served and did something extraordinary, and has helped enable the great life that we all enjoy today. Thank you.
Michael Peter Hallaghan enlisted in the United States Navy from 1957 to 1960. He served on the USS Intrepid from 1958 to 1959. On here, his main responsibility was to dive into the ocean waters during attacks and rescue the pilot as well as anyone else that was on a fallen aircraft. I think that one of the lessons he would find most important that he taught us was to be proud of our country. Ever since I was young, whenever I or anyone else in my family were with my grandfather and he heard the national anthem, he would make us all stop in our tracks and get on our feet until it was over. My grandpa's pride and love for this country is what made us want to give him this honor. We are all so proud of him, and we want him, as well as people who come to this theater in the future, to know that we are truly proud of him and he has done a great service for this country. He's left a legacy and a path for all those who know and love him, and we think it's only fair that we share this legacy with the rest of the world.
We came to the Intrepid back in 2013 for that 70th anniversary, and to watch him step on the ship after all the stories he's told, the kamikazes, the torpedoes that he went through. He didn't think his family knew what he went through, but in his stories, for Naomi and Harold, yes. Yes. This gentleman was his best man at Naomi's wedding. I didn't know, so we'll talk later. I'll tell you a little bit about my husband. He was a unique man. He lived to be 93 years, 6 months, and 21 days old. That's a good life. He was a gentle soul for all he'd been through. Today we honor Harold's service to his country with this seat of honor. It's a small token of our love for his years of dedication and service in World War II. And I know he's up there dancing right now because of the seat of honor. He loved the ship. Thank you.
I had the privilege of being best man for 2 weddings. One was aboard ship on the Intrepid. I don't know if any other weddings were performed on a ship, but a fellow named Patterson, and he excuse me, I'm choked up now. But anyway, I was best man and aboard ship, and that was interesting. But the second one was right now, Jockman.
This is the incredible thing, is that moments like this happen here all the time.
I just want to thank, as a preface, the museum staff for their friendship, for Carly and Susan, and especially Matt, who does a tremendous job. My brother was a good Irishman, but most importantly, he had lived out his life doing the three things that his parents really taught him, and that was to get an education, to use it to the best of your ability, and then to render service, which he really was convinced he was doing in the best possible way. And my mother also used to say more seriously than her other joke, and that is the final thing you can say about a person when he has passed away is that he was a good man. Brian was a good man.
When my father spoke of the Intrepid, it didn't stop. He lived and breathed the Intrepid. And he also ingrained in us, in me and my family, that whenever we saw a U.S. World War II veteran, that we were to thank them for our freedom. And that's the way I feel today. I thank you all for our freedom. I had a pilot who would call the house when my father came to live with me 2 years ago, and he would tell me that he would not leave the Intrepid until my father told him that his plane was okay. He knew that my father had checked everything over and that he would be safe. The Intrepid has been a part of my life. It always will be a part of my life. My father's biggest dream was to make the 70th anniversary of the ship last August, which he didn't. He passed away May previously. I had promised him dearly that I would try to get him to this, or I would get him to this reunion, and he never did make it. But I know in his heart he made it. I thank everyone from the museum for everything, and you people are the sweetest people there are.
It's a privilege to tell you about the men of Gun Tub 10. It's one of the most remarkable stories that we tell here at the museum. It's a story of true bravery and sacrifice in the face of what must have been a terrifying attack. It's also the story of determination and perseverance in the face of discrimination. It's important to remember that the Navy of World War II is very different than it is today. The U.S. Navy wasn't desegregated until 1948. On Intrepid, as on other naval ships, African American sailors typically served as steward's mates. They served the officers in their dining room, and they helped tidy their staterooms. But on Intrepid, some of these steward's mates also received a combat assignment. These men received gunnery training in California and on board the ship. When the ship was under attack, they manned a group of 6 anti-aircraft guns known as Gun Tub 10. These 20mm guns were the smallest guns on the ship. They had the shortest range. Crew members knew that when you heard the 20mm guns opening fire, that the enemy was dangerously close to the ship. On October 29, 1944, Intrepid was operating off the coast of the Philippines. The crew was called to their battle stations just before noon, as a group of Japanese aircraft drew near. Fewer than 10 minutes later, a Japanese airplane closed in. Intrepid's gunners, including the men in Gun Tub 10, fired at the enemy plane. Damaged by anti-aircraft fire, the airplane turned and plummeted into Gun Tub 10. The men continued firing even as the airplane crashed into the gun tub, killing 10 men and wounding 10 others. The day after the attack, the ship's plan of the day carried the following message from the executive officer. "We are all saddened by the suffering and death among our shipmates, but we saw an example of sheer nerve hard to equal and impossible to exceed. In this instance, we saw the unadvertised courage of our men serve their guns in the face of certain death. It wasn't necessary to whip up their courage. It was there." A number of sailors who served in Gun Tub 10 were promised the Navy Cross, the Navy's highest award for bravery. Indeed, Intrepid's own newspaper at the time stated that they were awarded the Navy Cross. However, the medals were later downgraded. The Bronze Star was still an acknowledgement of their bravery, but it was a lesser award. Gun Tub 10 survivor Alonzo Swan spent decades petitioning the Navy to get his Navy Cross. Finally, between 1993 and 2002, 5 decades after the attack, 5 of the surviving crew members finally received the Navy Cross, and their gun captain was posthumously awarded the Navy Cross.
That my father, he fought a battle for something that he wanted. And in the end, he received it. And every time I come to New York, I always come to the Intrepid. I always look everything what they have in the museum. But it's one thing I can say, that my family, my brothers and my sisters and everyone in my family, we really appreciate what he has done, and we appreciate the museum for displaying his his honor for him. And I would just like to say thank you for all the honorees.
I'm honored to stand here to be a representative of my country, which we fought to the last for it, with 20mm machine guns, 360 rounds a minute. It was a Japanese Kamisaki that hit the ship and killed 10 guys. And I was one in the midst of those 10 that can stand before you now and say, I thank my country and I honor it. And from the 2 years and 2 months that I served in there, I've never got a bad report. And I praise God for that. And you who was praying for us while we was on the battlefront at home. Thank the Lord. Thank y'all.
What an incredible story told by a very incredible individual. This is what makes the Intrepid Museum such a treasure. The stories behind the artifacts, the humanity behind the hardware, as we like to say. The seats in this theater represent an incredible legacy of honor, courage, and sacrifice. And most importantly, they will serve as a reminder to the generations that follow us that these individuals were all loved and cherished.